Alright, so best way to put it is it's got a hole in the block. What do you say, a window? So we are going to pull this motor out and we have another one to install. So I know I got a couple other videos going over some of that stuff. Just start taking everything apart, drain all of our fluids, and we've already got it supported on this wonderful quick jack right here. We've got plenty of room up here to pull out the engine. So let's get into this. We're finally to the point where we can check out the carnage. We actually had this come up and hit the dipstick tube. It's actually got that damaged. So that can go on the junk pile. Here's a nice sized piece. Let's set this stuff up here. The valve cover pile going. Alright, now looking down in here, this is pretty good. It's like number 2. Yeah, number 2 rod's totally going. I wonder if it went out the back. Sometimes they go out the back. Check it out. Right down in there. And you can see the rod right there. It's actually got the bed plate busted. And a hole in the pan too. The old pan's broken. I always like to look to see if it came through the back. Sometimes these like to come through the back too. I'm not going to know till I get more parts off, but if you look, carnage out the oil pan. Yeah, it was done. It was pretty good. Pretty good one here. I'm sure there's more damage up on top here. I just can't see it yet. But the bottom, it's kind of hard to see past the pipe here. But it's pretty good. Alright, so the other night I started digging into this, and you've seen some of the video. That's why the motor's getting pulled out. Right now I'm actually at the point where everything is unbolted except for the center mount and the trans mount. So I just wanted to do a walk around and show you guys kind of the carnage that I found down inside the engine, and the angles, and some of the pieces. Like right there, that's part of the bed plate. That's part of the block that goes above it. I don't know. Like here maybe? Something like that. Alright, pull this camera off and then we'll get down in here. Alright. Now we had seen this angle from the top, but from what I could tell is like it actually came out and hit this right here. I can't tell if it actually went through, but there you go. There's downside the block. You can see maybe that's a crank journal. I don't know. Looks like light in there. Alright, so what I did is I pulled off the air conditioning because it's charged, and I pulled off the lower bracket, the power steering bracket. I tucked that stuff down underneath. I pulled everything off. The battery tray, the vacuum lines, got all that out of the way, the tube. I have the bracket off of the transmission because you got to take it off when you separate the motor and the trans. The only thing holding the wiring harness on is back at the alternator. I usually get that once I get it up and out and pull the alternator. It's a little bit with this, but it's a whole lot easier just to do it that way. Now, everything else is kind of tucked off. Engine's tucked off. Fans out. Pipes off. Computer ECM is out. You don't want to let that in because you could end up damaging the plug ends on the computer or the plug ends from the harness if you leave them here plugged in and you're trying to move stuff out of the way. We have this unhooked just laying off to the side. So now we'll go down underneath here, and you'll see I have charge pipes off. You know, I have the exhaust unbolted. But here's where we want to see, right here. I found this to be quite amazing. Here, to the point, where's it at? Can I get it in it? Right there. You can see all the way through the engine out the back. There's a light back there. So, it's going to be kind of cool to actually see what's left in there. I mean, basically the rod come undone and just kind of beat itself apart, which normally is what happens. And let's slide around here. We have, alright, on the bottom, basically, just to go over this, we undid our axles. So you can see in through here. There's all the way into the transmission. So we have our CV axles removed. We have, like I said, the motor mount. Like I was saying, we are down just to, here's a couple pieces here. That's a piece of a piston. That's what that is. There's part of a piston right here laying on the engine cradle. So, man, I can't wait to get this thing apart and see. Alright, get this thing lifted out of here. Get the engine hoist set up. I got a couple things I got to move out of my way here. But we'll get the engine hoist, which is back there in the corner, moved up here, and we can actually get this engine pulled. We are ready to lift the motor out. So we got the engine hoist on here, and I have the Torx bit I need for this side, and I have the 18 sitting over there. So let's get these unbolted. So I'm hoping that you've seen that. I got this picked on this twist because you need to drop that side down. Now, it's kind of hard to determine how much pressure you have to how much weight that's on the chain and if there's slack. So sometimes it'll pop like that. But you always want to make sure that anything's out of the way, so if something would happen, it doesn't get damaged. Or, you know, I could have put a jack underneath the other side, and that would have helped too, but I intended it to 100% do that. So, right now, I'm going to remove the battery tray and that lower mount, and once that stuff's out of the way, we should be able to pick this thing right out. Alright, we got the bracket removed. Got all that stuff sitting right down here. You can kind of see the bracket. The mount's off. We got the room for all that stuff. So, just like any other time. I mean, first time in this building since I got everything set up that I'm doing a motor. So, I don't know if I want you to watch, but let's see what happens here. Everything should work out. It might be a small little bit of learning curve, just like trying to figure out where all your tools are, because everything's new. So, here we go. Shimmy and shake. Alright, if you see, it's a little higher. So, I did some checking to see what I needed to make a little bit of room. I'm just so used to pulling the radiator and the condenser all out at one time and trying not to have to worry about recharging air conditioning. So, basically what I did is, this was already off. Somebody has a 3-inch elbow installed on this motor. So they actually took everything off, and they actually took the time to replace everything, which is not something you see, so it's pretty professional. So I pulled the upper coolant line, just tucked it over here, and pulled the turbo loose so that I had a little bit of room to get past that, and this lower ear of the transmission where the starter would go would clear. Alright, now the biggest thing I wanted to say was, and you can really see that window. So, anyway, I'm going to finish getting this out of here. I got to move around and bend and twist and turn and make sure nothing gets damaged. So, as soon as we get this out, I'll show you what this block looks like. Alright, so you can see we got the motor out. Here's our engine bay. Actually pretty nice. Not bad for the car. I mean, it's actually in pretty fair shape. So, we kind of wanted to be able to see from the back here. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of stuff here in the way yet. So, turn this around here. I can see. Maybe we can actually see. Oh, look at that. We got the lower axle bracket is busted. Right there. Look at that. Straight one through. Busted out the lower axle bracket. Looks like it kind of hit the exhaust. There's actually a hole in the top of the oil filter right there. There's some more pieces. That whole chunk just wants to come off in one piece. Not too good. Alright, well, that's now tear down time, and we'll get the other motor out. We're going to set right next to it, and we'll start switching everything over, including the transmission and the clutch and basically everything that you see on this motor, and basically get it ready to put back in. But you know, this is that's probably one of the worst ones I've ever seen broke through like that. Alright, so I can't remember what I last filmed because it's actually been a day or so. But as you see, we got the motor out. This is actually the motor that's getting ready to go back in. we are switching everything off. You can actually really see the amount of damage that was done to this engine. Alright, you can actually see what you guys, you can see here, this shattered the pan right here. Stick my finger in. The bed plate is all broken all the way across here. We also can see the whole way through. Yeah, in a couple places there. Alright, clear to this side. This is the front side. You can see here now, I still got to get this out of the way, but actually something came out and hit this. I think it's the whole way through. It's kind of hard to tell. Had damage done to the dipstick. Here's the oil pan. The bracket that holds the CV axle right here. It chunked that out. So, but right now, basically what I got to do is I need to strip this apart because I cannot rotate the engine around to be able to get in here and get at these. I'm going to probably try, but I don't have an alignment tool, so I don't want to disassemble the whole assembly here on the clutch, which I really don't have to anyway. But we got to get that off. So that's kind of where we're at right now on this assembly process. Alright, so I got a couple more things off of here. And pretty much right now I'm at the point of popping the cylinder head off. I figure that I would turn the camera on for that, and then we can actually see if there's any what'd you say, piston to valve clearance issues. So here we go. Alright, here we go, guys. There's one. You can see it hit the top of the plug. Might have this valve right here might be vent. So we can actually see down in the cylinder now. And I can tell you what, it don't look pretty. It definitely doesn't look pretty. Alright. There we go. Stuck. Maybe I can knock some of that stuff out of the way and it'll allow me to spin the engine over so that I can get the clutch off. But yeah, the piston has come apart. Alright, we had to tilt the engine over because I tried tapping the piston up and it didn't look like it was doing anything. So now we got it flipped over. We got a bunch of parts fall out of the engine just as we were tipping out. I mean, along with everything else. But so here comes the oil pan. Let's see what's in here. Ooh. A couple pieces of this, a couple pieces of that. Goodness, there is stuff everywhere. Snap ring? There's pieces of piston everywhere. So let's start getting stuff out of the way. See if we can get this engine to rotate around. I got it to spin. I got 2 bolts off. So now we're just kind of at, you know, unbolt whatever you can to try to get this apart. And, you know, maybe we can just get the whole crank out. And, you know, be able to spin it then. Alright, so there's that. There we go. The little pump's loose. Now, we still got one in there. 10. There's that. Grab a real hammer. There we go. Clutch is off. Tutti frutti. So, what a pain in the neck. But yeah, you can see there was some extreme. Man, I'm hoping you can see that. There was some extreme heat. So that had to be making noise for a little while before it actually before it went. I mean, you know, it's not like that thing spun around in there. It beat it a couple times. And I mean, that would put some extra pressure on it. But, you know, not to that extreme. So, alright, well, let's get this flywheel off. And I'm going to get that part switched over. And I'll show you a little bit more here. I'm going to get some of this mess cleaned up. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Anyway, figure out it's a good way to start this. So, after I got done tearing the block apart, which would have actually been last night because you can see there's daylight coming through now, I had to tear the block apart to get the clutch off. We accomplished all that. We got all the everything is now transferred onto this engine to be dropping it in. So here we go. It's up in the air. We're putting it down in, and you know, this is kind of the fun part. Not really, but the fun part's when you finally get started and go and drive. So right now, this is probably like one of the, I would say, it's kind of almost as important as getting it out as it is dropping it back in just like this. We got to set this thing down in here. We got to keep an eye on everything to make sure we're not pulling any wires, damaging any plug ends, any hoses, or anything of that similarity when we're dropping this down in here. Now, we do have the power steering unit, which I laid down on the ground, same as I did when I pulled it. I do have the AC compressors down there. I pulled the brackets off of the radiator to be able to pull that back to give me a little bit of room because it's really tight between here and back there. But we'll see how this goes. We're going to get this thing dropped in. I got some other videos actually installing the engines. It is a whole lot easier without the radiator and the condenser in the way. So this is just going to be a little bit complicated. It's going to take a little time, so I'm just going to get this done, and then I'm going to turn this back on and show you what it looks like once it's finally sitting down in, and maybe go over some of the stuff that we call it, and, well, you get it. We'll be back. Well, you know how it is once you start moving, you just keep moving. So, with a little bit of elbow grease and a giant shoehorn, we got it down in here. Been working on getting everything reassembled. I got the exhaust is back on, center mount, trans mounts all bolted up, starters in, power steering pumps in, it's bolted up, air conditioning units on, it's bolted in, we got our belts on, started installing some of our other stuff over here. We now have our 5 quarts of oil in, and I'm busy working on getting the bracket for the bracket for the shift cables bolted in right now. Which on on its own is a whole task. Because of how nicely it's shoved down in behind here. But we put some anti-seize on the bolts because I know that they always want to come out pretty tight. So whoever has to deal with it next time, whether it's 6 months, a year, 10 years from now, they'll come right out. Do a little extension for this. But we're really close, you know. I mean, I still got to put the axles in and assemble the lower part, the suspension, get the wheels and the tires back on. But we're going to focus on trying to get everything together up top here, and then we'll move down and start doing that stuff. So it's kind of just a quick overlook of what's going on here. Everything's down in here all back together the way it should be, including the exhaust. So got to get this thing out of here. I got really big surprise for myself. I've actually, you know, it's kind of like the quick jack. Had that for a while. Now I finally got made some room, eliminated some of our storage options, and here my friend had to come say hi. Hi. Look. Alice. Yeah. But I got some storage stuff, some storage ideas coming. I've had them for a couple days now, so I just know as soon as I can get this job here finished up, I can actually get over to getting that in, and that'll be a giant organizational thing for the shop. Not only that, you know, I still have a lot more stuff I want to go through and get organized, but you know how that is. You have things you want to do, and you got things you need to do, and then other things you just get stuck doing. So good puppy. All right. Basically, we have everything right now is completely assembled except for hooking up the vacuum line assembly and bleeding out the AC system. Or I mean, not the AC system, the AC, the coolant. So we have to fill up the coolant. I could actually start the vehicle right now, but we got a dead battery, so we got it on charge.